Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for joining this webinar on our Masters in Organisational Psychology and Behaviour here in DCU Business School. My name is Jenny Bozak. I'm a full professor in Organisational Psychology, Behaviour and HRM, and I also have the huge pleasure of being the Programme Chair of the MSc in Organisational Psychology and Behaviour. And I'm absolutely thrilled today not just to be here on my own, but I actually have Triona Darcy, who is a recent graduate of our Masters in Organisational Psychology, join us today, as well as Hazel Burke, who is a second-year student and also class rep of the Masters in Organisational Psychology and who will graduate this autumn. So huge thanks in advance to both of you, Hazel and Triona, for being here today. And both of them are best placed, I would say, to actually talk about the lived experience of the program and how it has benefited their careers. And I'm sure you'll have loads of questions for them. Before we do so, I'd like to just give you an overview of the program and what it might feel like to become a student and to join our learning community. And feel free to jump in anytime. Feel free to put questions in the chat, and we make sure that we have enough time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions that you may have for either myself, Triona, or Hazel. So maybe let's start off by looking at the question, why DCU? And as you might know, DCU is a relatively young university, but I think we are doing really, really well. So we have been, for example, ranked in the top 90 business schools in Europe in the Financial Times ranking in 2024, and only 3 Irish business schools have actually achieved this ranking. So we're very proud of that. One of the selling features and things that we're proud of as well is that the fact that we are AACSB accredited. What does that mean, you might ask? Well, AACSB is one of the oldest and most prestigious accreditations that a business school can get. It is really a hallmark of excellence in business education. And I don't know if you've come across the figure yet, but less than 5% of the world's business schools actually do get this accreditation, and we do have it. Those of you who have already heard about DCU or might have had a look at our website, well, DCU and DCU Business School in particular have very strong connections with industry. So we do research with industry, consultancy, we host industry events and roundtables. Just as we speak, there's something going on in the background. And we are also very proud to basically produce industry relevant and evidence-based practitioners. So, and I think Triona and Hazel can testify to that. Now, with regards to the program that you are interested in, it's actually the longest running program of its kind here in Ireland. It was already established in the early 90s. So we have extensive experience running it. It's a program that's accredited by both CIPD and PSI. And as a result of having run this program for quite some time, we are also very proud to have a very strong group of scholars who are researching basically, the specific topics that we're going to be covering as part of the course, from well-being, engagement, to diversity, ranging to leadership, as well as, for example, leading change. And we are, as a group, not only producing cutting-edge research, but we're feeding that research really back into the classroom to provide you with the latest thinking and make sure that you can feed that back into your day-to-day decision-making, into making informed, as I said, evidence-based decisions, and basically be able to manage more effectively, to lead more effectively, whether it's change initiatives or people more generally. And of course, also then to maybe improve the workplace in terms of, for example, job design, or also facilitating job crafting. When you do register for this particular program, I should say that we actually sort of have 2 streams there. There's the organizational psychology stream as well as the organizational behavior stream. But they are sort of artificial in a sense, because the only distinction between the 2 really is the fact that they come with different module codes, and the fact that depending on which program you register for, the title on the parchment that you're going to get at your graduation is going to differ. And the reason why we have to differ between these 2 streams is the fact that the Psychological Society Ireland only allows people to register on the MSc in Organisational Psychology when you have an undergraduate degree in psychology, or a diploma or a conversion course basically done. Only then can you register for this particular course and then also be an organizational psychologist, basically when you come out the other end. So other than that, what we do is we actually have all of the students from these two different programs in one class. They have the same class experience, the same lectures, they go through the same content. And we actually mix them on purpose for the teams that they are going to be working in. So in a sense, as I said, this is more of an artificial distinction, which, however, is important from an accreditation point of view. What I should flag as well is if you intend to apply for the program or think about applying for the program, is that we also look for work experience. So we usually require our students to have a minimum of 5 years of working experience. And, you know, most of our students have way more than that. Only few students, a very small number, is admitted straight from their undergraduate degree. And they tend to be usually academically very strong and often also then move into PhDs often afterwards. But it is really important for the program and also the success of the program and the learning that you're going to get from the program, that we actually have a really rich mix of students who are working, in different industries, in different roles, who have very different backgrounds and who bring that work experience into the classroom in order to inform lively discussions and to, for example, have conversations about what works in my workplace and what wouldn't work in my place in comparison to what works in your place and what doesn't work, for example, in your organization. And I think that exchange, that knowledge exchange, is absolutely crucial. So what would you be doing if you were to sign up for this particular program? Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a flavor of what the course structure looks like. It's a 2-year program, as I was saying, where you will be coming into DCU one afternoon/evening per week. For the forthcoming cohort, this is going to be the Tuesday, kicking off this September from 3 to 8. And what we are going to do is we are going to provide you in year 1, semester 1, with a really strong foundation with regards to organizational psychology. So you will be having a module called actually Organizational Psychology, which is currently delivered by my colleague, Professor Isak Freeney. And she would be covering topics with you such as, for example, the nature of work, careers. She would be looking with you at different types of motivation theories. Job design, absolutely crucial, and ties into motivation theories. So how can I motivate people? How can I design workplaces in which people feel a sense of flourishing, engagement, and are healthy? She will be looking also with you at the question of how to make decisions, heuristics and biases that might come into place. And then also look at the future of work more broadly. I mean, we've just gone through COVID. People have come out the other end where they now have to, for example, manage teams. Hybrid, for example, working is at the forefront. And you do that. And what is it that we're going to anticipate there also in terms of changes and trends with regards to the future of work? The other module that you would be having in semester 1 of year 1 is strategy, organization, and innovation. That's another big module, as you can tell from the 10 credits. And this is delivered by my colleague, Malcolm Brady. He has a strategic management background. And the idea really here is also to equip you with more strategic thinking. So you, as a leader, you might think, well, now I have an understanding of how to, let's say, for example, improve employee morale or how to boost employees' performance. But you need to do so, and you need to, for example, introduce interventions in line with the broader strategic vision and mission of the organization. It has to be aligned with strategy and goals within an organization. And this is where Malcolm basically comes in terms of looking with you more broadly at management theories, alignment, for example, of structures and organizations, and also the role of innovation. Year one, semester two, then is going to allow you to dive a little bit more into the question of leadership and how to manage and lead people effectively. So this is a module that I'm actually teaching together with Professor Flood, who is our full professor in organizational behavior. And we very much enjoy teaching this module, which is very much about learning about different types of leadership theories, leadership styles, and their effectiveness. We are looking at the question of how leaders are instrumental in terms of, for example, looking after employees' well-being and how they can do so, as I said, through different types of interventions, through a good job design, but also need to mind themselves. We're looking at the question of navigating power and politics in organizations. And then, of course, very importantly, leading change and managing resistance to change. So this is a rough spill in terms of what we are covering there. And it is very much a module grounded on the one hand in state-of-the-art reading, but also we work a lot with case studies, for example, for people to really apply that knowledge to real existing cases. And then we have research methods, which is a module that is sort of already preparing students for the dissertation to come. So here, students learn about different types of research methods, state-of-the-art research in the field. They learn about qualitative research in terms of how to, for example, define a research question, put an interview schedule together, but also around quantitative research, if you were to prefer to carry out maybe a survey at a later point in time. And students actually identify topics that they are interested in, develop ideas for these projects that they might want to carry out on their own. For example, in their organizations, or if they're employed, they might decide to, for example, do an online survey. And we recently had a poster session where our first two students actually were very excited to present their ideas. And it was a fabulous vibe in the classroom where students were just so enthusiastic about, presenting their ideas, getting them out there, discussing with faculty what they wanted to do, inviting feedback on it. And it's always a highlight of the year. Yes, so that's the first year, which gives you a flavor of what you would be doing if you were to sign up for the program. Year two then is more applied in terms of its focus. So here in semester one, we have 3 different types of modules. On the one hand, learning and development, which is currently delivered by Professor Finian Buckley, Professor in Organisational Psychology. We recently added a module called Trust and Relationships because there's a recognition that trust in particular is a topic that is emerging more and more in practice as well as in the scholarly literature. And this module is delivered by Lisa van der Werf, an associate prof here. And she is also, and I should mention that, the president of FIND, which is a network of leading scholars in the field of trust globally. So you really have experts here delivering on the program. And then we have selection and assessment, which again is a crucial module where we, as part of this module, would be learning how psychology can actually inform effective selection and assessment, because you want to make sure that you're hiring the right person for the right job, there's a good job fit, and then also around managing talent. And then year two, semester two is more skills-based. As you can see there, we have 2 modules here, which are practicing organizational psychology, delivered by Claire Gubbins, our prof in organizational behavior and HRM, and coaching and mentoring. And so the idea here is that you actually acquire, for example, consultancy skills, that you learn about ethical practice, that you learn about different types of coaching and mentoring skills. So that's a module that I would have, for example, also delivered in the past, and where you would be learning how coaching is different, for example, from mentoring and from, let's say, consultancy, where you would be learning how to, for example, lead a coaching conversation, how to build up, for example, listening skills, empathy, and so on. And again, it's a very popular module. Psychometrics then is also a crucial part of the program. So here it is very important for the Psychological Society of Ireland that we support our students in the psychometric certification, which means that as part of the program, we actually offer test usability training, which is delivered by an external provider. And this is the first step then for our students who register on the program towards becoming recognized as a psychometrics practitioner. So anyone who goes through the full program will come out at the end of it having completed the test usability training and being certified in this regard. And then the last piece, and you can see that's 25 credits, is the actual dissertation that you will have to be doing. And it's a very, I would say, enjoyable research process, which, as I said, already starts in year one with you identifying a suitable proposal, in an area that you'd like to dwell deeper in. You're free to choose the topic that you'd like to do. And then you're being assigned a supervisor at the end of year one who is going to work with you very closely and guide you through the process. And then in year two, it becomes more intensive. And again, the modules will feed into that and support you in this particular journey. And then the students would normally submit their dissertations in early June. And and I'm always looking forward to getting those dissertations because they're an absolute pleasure to read. And they range very much in terms of variety, with some students, as I said, pursuing qualitative research, some students pursuing quantitative research, and all sorts of different types of topics. So this is the team. I mentioned a number of names already. I have the huge pleasure to work with an absolutely amazing group of colleagues who are not just lovely colleagues, but are also, as I said, leading scholars in their respective topic areas. And we have, for example, as I said, Professor Finian Buckley and Lisa van der Werf, who are really strongly invested in the area of trust research. Isolde Freeney and myself both research on well-being. I also focus on women and leadership, but also Isolde does a lot of work on career transitions at the moment. Professor Flood stands for leadership, really, at research. Malcolm around strategy, organization, innovation. And then Claire Gubbins, as I was saying, does a lot of work in the area of L&D as well as social networks. And the whole team is very research active. They lead ongoing projects in organizations. And this sort of knowledge, this research also feeds back into the classroom. And I think that's very important to mention, because what we want to do is really share the latest thinking with our students. We want to make sure that they're on top of what's going on in the research field and how that is important then to, organizations, decisions to be made in organizations, or, for example, interventions to be rolled out. So it really is about making sure that you come out of DCU as an evidence-based practitioner, where you build on research evidence as well as data from your organizations and other types of data that is available to underpin the decisions that you have to make on a day-to-day basis. And I think I speak on behalf of my colleagues that I believe that all of us are very enthusiastic about the program. We are very approachable, we are available for student queries, and we really enjoy teaching on the program and interacting with students, which I hope Hazel and Triona can testify to. In terms of the course, I think what's important here to mention is that we put a lot of emphasis and investment into making sure that we have a learning community. So it is really crucial here that we create a positive and an enjoyable classroom experience where people actually feel safe. We call this psychological safety, where they feel safe to share their experiences, where they are happy to voice their ideas, where also controversial thoughts and perspectives are being thrown out at, but people are respectful, and where students actually learn from each other quite a lot, not just from us lecturers. And I think that's the synergy that we have at the moment, which is really important. And the fact that our students are very diverse in terms of the student profiles adds to that, because we have a mix of students from different backgrounds, as I was saying, different roles, different things, and that enriches the conversations that we have in the classroom, the discussions, and of course, the mutual, learning. And therefore, we encourage our students to come to class, right? I know we've been through COVID. There has been obviously some online teaching and a bit of a hybrid mode in transition. But we really want our students to be back in the classroom because we have found that it really does make a difference. Coming into DCU, actually making that journey into DCU, leaving work behind, focusing then in the classroom on fully immersing yourself in the class experience and the learning experience, and to really be there for your team members, because that's much harder, to do, over the screen as we're doing at the moment. And then to use their voice, share their experiences, and listen and support their team. Reading is core to the program, so be prepared for that if you haven't done a lot of reading recently. But it is very enjoyable once you get into the mode of reading. Reading is maybe a bit challenging at the start for some of our students coming back to university, because the kind of articles that you will be reading are peer-reviewed journal articles mostly, and they have a very particular way, or the way they're written, it's in a very particular way. So we are not using core text, but we are really exposing you to state-of-the-art research. But in addition to the state-of-the-art articles, you will also be reading some overview chapters, and of course also case studies, which make them for more friendly reading, I would say. Then in terms of the assessments, the good news is we only have continuous assessments on this program, meaning there's no exams. Most of the assessments tend to be individual assessments, but we also have some group assessment, because it's important for us that you actually have an opportunity to work in teams, to facilitate knowledge sharing, and to have that sense of a learning community. And I'll come to those groups later on, but I think these groups actually are very special when it comes to the program. Who is the program for? I would say for pretty much anyone who is interested in understanding human behavior and interactions in the workplace, as well as individuals who want to basically create better workplaces, because work is where we spend most of our waking hours, and it is really important that we have workplaces, as I was saying earlier on, in which we feel engaged, in which we feel that we have a purpose, and where we can actually flourish. And, this program is an opportunity to learn more about that and to put that actually into practice. So when I look at our student profile, what we can see is we really have a diversity with regards to our students, which is absolutely wonderful to see. So students from different types of industries, tech, pharma, consultancy, healthcare, and so on. People are in very different roles, within different industries, private, but also public sector. Some are more junior, some are very senior in terms of being managing directors, for example. Some have their own businesses, right? They might run a consultancy already, or they have their own coaching practice. So you see there's a beautiful mix. We also had a school teacher, a school principal, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. So you see there's a really nice mix, and that really leads to a very, enriched learning experience in the classroom, because you get very different perspectives, very different ideas from those different types of organizations and settings. Why do students choose this program? And you might ask this question yourself, and you probably want to find out from Triona and Hazel shortly why they have chosen the program and how it has contributed to their own careers. There's very different reasons. So there's some people who are actively looking for a career change. So they might say, look, I'm taking on this program because I'd like to move into, let's say the HR space, or there's something that I want to do where I have more to do with people, and that's why I'm signing up for this particular program. This change can also sometimes be within the same organization, right? So where you have maybe a horizontal move, because you've been working, let's say, for example, in a very technical role, and now you would like to move into a more people management focused role. Some of our students also indicate that career progress or advancement is very important for them. So it is critical for them that in order to advance, that they have the necessary skills, for example, in place, that they can clearly document that they're, suited for career progression. And that might be one of the motivators. And then for a good number of students, it's simply about leading people effectively. So I just mentioned, for example, tech roles. So one of the former students on the program was actually doing a PhD with me at the moment, is the manager of 2 plants in a pharmaceutical company. And he basically was responsible at the time for rolling out lean manufacturing. And being an engineer by background and a lean master, he clearly knew about the technical side of rolling out lean, and he was very confident about doing that. But he said, what I felt I was missing out on was understanding the human side and how lean manufacturing is going to impact people's sense of work, the way they are working now in teams, for example, and what is it that I can do to support them more effectively during this transition. And that's why he undertook this particular program. And as I was saying, he not only successfully graduated from the program, but even decided then to pursue a PhD with me. He's a second-year PhD student at the moment, focusing on the topic of well-being and job crafting in the workplace, which is absolutely fantastic to see, because he's as I said, a mature PhD student and quite advanced actually in his career, and to tick that on at that stage. But his wife said he has a thirst for learning, and you fed this so amazingly here at DCU that he wanted to continue. Already at the graduation ceremony, he was saying, I'm continuing, and he does. So where do our grads work? And I'm sure that's a question that you may have as well. As I said, it's the longest program running in Ireland. So obviously, this slide is going to just give you sort of a snapshot of some of the organizations as to where our students have been working or have moved into upon graduation from this program. There are many, many more. As I said, they're working in various organizations, large organizations, SMEs, private sector, public sector, in various different types of roles. And I already mentioned that we also have, usually on every cohort, a small number of students who either already have their own business or practice and undertake this course to further their knowledge there, or who decide to actually embark on, launching their own business following the graduation. With regards to the course experience, as I was saying, if you were to sign up for this program, you would have to make room 1 afternoon/evening a week in order to participate in the classes. So for the incoming intake, this is going to be at Tuesdays from 3 to 8. As I said, we encourage students to come in person to those classes and to make sure as best as possible that they are not missing out on those classes, because it's really the interaction in the classroom, whether it's a lively discussion, whether it's a role play that we're doing on the spot, whether it is, for example, giving pitches of opposing teams. We do loads of interactive things that really work well when you're there in person in the classroom. And in between, of course, the classes, there's the networking going on, the socializing going on, which is absolutely crucial for you in order to come out of DCU then upon your graduation with an amazing network of talented people. We do support our students, however, though, through online learning. We have a virtual learning environment called Loop that we use as a supplement. I'll give you an insight in a moment as to how Loop works. And Loop is very important for us because what it does do is it allows us to share materials in advance with our students so that they can engage in, for example, required readings before coming to the classroom, that they do experiential exercises or already analyze a case and have a good understanding of the case, so that when we actually do have the classes, we can maximize the time that we have on actual classroom discussion. And that's very important for us. And then, as I said, the last piece with regards to course experience is team working and assessments. So as I was saying, the assessments are continuous assessments, most of them individual based, but we also have a few team-based assessments where they have the opportunity to work in your teams. And we do assign teams at the start of the program. And as I said, we are going to mix you. There's not a psychology group and an OB group. No, quite the opposite. We mix you on the basis of, each group then being diverse as a result of the process, so that we have students who are, part of the OB or psychology program who are different in terms of their, for example, industry experience, sometimes also career level, and so on, which then makes for a very good discussion and knowledge exchange more broadly. What's important here is to bear in mind that all of you are super busy, you're working full time, you often have on top of that family commitments. And in order to manage that and to be able to work effectively as a team, I think it's absolutely crucial to engage in what we call team contracts. And we have you do that, which means that you sit down with your team members and you really get a written document, which is called team contract, which makes you basically explicate your expectations. It also makes you have a discussion around your commitments, possibly conflicting commitments, and how you're going to manage that as a team in order then to perform effectively as a team over the course of the 2 years. And these teams are also very important networks for your lifelong career. So, and often not just networks, they often become long-standing friendships. It was actually just a couple of weeks ago that I ran into a former student of this program, and I was talking to her, and she was saying that she basically was still meeting the members from her group on a monthly basis for drinks, and they had been to each other's weddings, and they're meeting up to celebrate each other's achievements. And it really has gotten to this point where it's a really beautiful long-term, friendship. And I think that's a wonderful statement in terms of how they have gotten along in terms of working with each other and how much they have helped each other and supported each other through the 2 years, but even afterwards. Before I come to Loop, which is the main tool that we are using on a day-to-day basis when engaging with our students, I'd just like to say a few words about our virtual reality lab. We have the Column Dwells lab, which is really, really unique in a sense, because what it does is it provides our DCU Business School students with an opportunity to actually develop and hone their leadership skills. And you do so by using cutting-edge virtual reality technology, if you like. So, for example, students might give a TED talk or give a charismatic leadership speech, and then, basically technology analyzes the way that you do that, feeds it back to you, and looks at the question of, for example, how you can improve your eye contact or speaking pace and so on. Or we recently had a group from the MSc in Emergency Management, for example, go through a team building exercise where they had to defuse a bomb, where as a group you would have to, for example, use your coordination skills and also keep your calm when doing so. The main tool that we, however, use as an online supporting tool is Loop, and you see a screenshot from the main page here from the Leadership and Change module that Patrick and myself are teaching. And basically the way it works for our module is such that we have a 12-week semester with 1 week reading week. So we have 11 different types of topics that we're covering as part of our course. You can see some of the topics here: leadership, ethics and decision-making, gender and leadership, leadership and well-being, and so on. And we basically have set up Loop in such a manner that these tiles that you see actually operate as virtual books. I'll come to that in a moment. So where the student navigates through the book for every topic session that we have, with some work to be done prior to the class, and then there's a learning log afterwards that students can complete if they wish. And I'll give you an insight in a moment. So the way it works for our module, just to give you an example, and every module is slightly differently, is that you would start off by watching an introductory video on loop, which is embedded in this book, where either Patrick or myself basically set the scene for the respective session. Then there is some, if you go to the next page of the book, then there are some readings indicated that you have to do in advance of class. These are mandatory readings. Then you may have to prepare something for the in-class session, such as, for example, a case to be read and analyzed, or a self-assessment exercise like an implicit association test. Or you might have to watch a small TED talk. And then we also have discussion forums where you are required to post in advance of the session. And you can see what the other students are posting so that there is some sort of, discussion going on. Then we have the actual class. And as I said, there's a learning log that can be completed if you wish in terms of summarizing your learning. Reading, I already mentioned. There's reading and there's more reading, and we always provide you with additional articles that you can delve into if you like. With regards to the assessment, this is just, again, a flavor as with regards to our module. We have these discussion forum posts that students have to do that count for 5% of the grades, and the critical incident paper. This is a very brief example just to basically back up what I was just saying there, where, for example, for the session on leadership and well-being, you would have a very recent article by Bachelor and colleagues on the job demands resources model, which is a very popular model used in academia, but also by practitioners. Then there's a slightly older but seminal article by Vreshnevsky and colleagues on job crafting. The reason why students have to read that is because it includes like a case study in this Harvard Business Review article that helps to then actually engage in advance of the session with the job crafting exercise that you have to do yourself to analyze your own job, to what extent it is meaningful, gives you a sense of purpose, is energizing, and what you can do to actually change that job and craft in such a way that it gives you more purpose, more meaning, more energy. And then students meet in the actual classroom one-on-one, it's a one-on-one peer coaching session to basically brief each other on that and discuss it. And then we have the discussion forum here as an example. Again, to be completed in advance as a leader, how can you promote work engagement and well-being in the workplace? And students post that. I usually read through those posts and then bring them back into the classroom for discussion. And then I said that there's additional readings indicated for those who either can't get enough because they really love the topic and they want to dive deeper into it, but also students avail of that sometimes when thinking about their dissertation topics and use those as a starting point. Then to see, well, is that a topic for me? If I were to read up more on this, is that what I want to do? And then to build on that. Yeah, and I guess that's it from me in terms of providing an overview of the program. And I'm sure you're pretty eager to hear from Hazel and Triona in a moment. And I believe both of them are here, and I'd like to thank them in advance for being so kind and generous with their time to make this session. So as I said, Hazelberg is a workforce specialist at PwC. She's currently a second-year student. So at this stage where she's finishing her final assignments and moving completely into the dissertation phase, and she'll be graduating this autumn. And then we have Triona Darcy, who is a recent graduate, who is a learning and development manager at Grant Thornton. And yeah, I'm really happy that they are here. And if you can hear me, Hazel and Triona, maybe Hazel can kick off and share some thoughts of hers around how she came about coming to the program, how it has benefited her, or is hopefully still benefiting her, and then maybe the same with you, Triona, if that's okay. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Janine. Sorry, I'm a bit sick today, so if I have a cough or I'm hoarse, I apologise in advance.
But thanks so much for making it, though. I really appreciate it.
No, Yeah, hi everyone. So as Janine said, I'm Hazel and I am just coming to the end of the program now, which is quite crazy that it flew by so quickly. You'd be surprised how fast the time goes by, especially when the semesters are broken down into the 12-week periods. Like it isn't really 2 years when you think of it. You do have, such short semesters. So yeah, I'm working as a workforce specialist in PwC at the moment. I sit on the executive search team, so I specialize in executive recruitment and executive search. We have a wider workforce team who does consulting in the space of diversity and inclusion, change management, org design. There's a wide range of service offerings there. So for me, I did this course initially because I did the conversion psychology masters in DCU first, and heard about this course through that and kind of became interested in the work and business element of psychology, which was a surprise to me because I'd always been interested in the clinical kind of side of psychology, but doing that other course, I kind of was, opened up to this new area that I hadn't really got much exposure to before. So that was where my interest was sparked from. And then I was coming to the end of that and I kind of wanted to start my career. So I felt like this was a nice way to line up with my job. So I got my job in PwC at the same time. So this has really allowed me to kind of, yes, it's useful in the executive search space, but ideally now, hopefully, I'm going to be transitioning into the more general workforce consulting. So that will allow me then to have the sort of skills, the consultancy skills that Janine talked about earlier, to kind of deliver on the change management, the work design, the D&I sort of initiatives. So it's been really beneficial in that sense. Also with my long-term kind of career goals, I'm becoming an organizational psychologist was something that was of interest to me before I started the course. So again, this is quite specific to my own career journey, but I am super interested in that. And the great thing about the course is a lot of organizational psychologists are brought in throughout the course to give you an insight as to how they use their qualification at work. So some will specialize as an org psychologist, maybe have their own business. We also had somebody come in from public jobs, and she works in public jobs as an org psychologist, and that was super interesting what she does there. So that's a great thing. If that's something you're interested in, you're going to get a great insight from various people across the course about how they function as an org psychologist, because you can be an org psychologist and work in an organization, but you can also just be an org psychologist and do your own stuff. So that was interesting for me to kind of find that out. You'd be surprised how many organizational psychologists might sit in PwC or Deloitte, Grant Thornton, and you don't realize because they're just doing their role, but they actually are qualified and chartered. So that was super interesting for me to learn. So yeah, long term, that would be my next career goal, would be to kind of move into the org psychology space, get my chartership. And as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit younger, so I'm one of the younger people on the course. But if there's anyone here that is kind of, similar to my age, I wouldn't let that deter them. I think if anything, it has reaffirmed my interest in the area. And, long term, I think that I can now apply the principles and skills and research that I have learned, and kind of, gathering my bank of research and data that I can apply in the future. So yeah, and also just to say, as Janine said, with the diverse groups, like I've learned so much from the people that are in my group. It's absolutely amazing, like, because they're so much, more further along in their career. Like for me, it was a great development opportunity to be able to learn from, people who are directors and VPs in their companies, and everyone is super supportive of one another. So, I felt I offered them the kind of research element because I have a bit more of a research background. I was able to kind of help them with little queries on that, but they were super supportive in terms of career advice and career help, and the kind of more difficult things that I struggled with on the course that were a bit more maybe practical based, that I didn't have the same level of experience with as they did. So sorry, I probably rambled a bit there at the end, but that's kind of my experience of the course, and hopefully my future experience coming up as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Hazel, for sharing that. And I really appreciate you being here. I wasn't aware that you were sick. Thanks so much. Triona, are you there as well? I probably have to scroll down here.
Yeah, no, I'm here and I can hear, which is nice, considering I couldn't when I first tried to join. So apologies for being a little late earlier. I've just had some tech difficulties.
Not at all. Thanks for being here, really. We appreciate it.
No problem, no problem. Thanks for asking me. So hi everyone. So Janine's given me an intro there. I have a kind of an interesting sort of a backstory, I suppose, in terms of where I am today. Because I had basically a total change of career and sector, actually. So many moons ago, I studied psychology in Aberdeen University, actually in Scotland. And similar to Hazel, I had kind of gone in with this preconceived notion that psychology clinical was where I kind of wanted to go. And I think a lot of people think like that when they hear psychology and then enter the world of psychology and realize actually there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more fields. There's so much. There's something for everyone. And I even back then gravitated towards organizational psychology. That was where my interest was. I did my undergrad in organizational psychology, my thesis undergrad in organizational psychology as well, actually in risk management. So it was always an area that I was significantly interested in. However, when it came to qualifying, decided I wanted to return to Ireland. And back then in Ireland, there weren't really the sort of assistant psych jobs that you see nowadays, you know. So I ended up going into social care and working effectively with a child protection organization, charity. And I stayed there for about 20 years and worked my way up sort of from frontline to management. And then about 10 years ago, they created an L&D management position. Actually, it was a cross-border organization. So they created an L&D position, which I was successful in going for. So I was kind of given a blank canvas in a way to start this whole new department in the South, which was really, really good because I could kind of shape it and format it to the way I wanted it, obviously in line with the organizational needs effectively. And I think kind of following that, then this, you know, I started gravitating a little bit more, thinking about organizational psychology again and going, look, no more than Hazel, I was wanting to be a psychologist. I wanted an IST at the end. So I was kind of going, right, maybe it's time to reconsider going back to college. And I'd looked at this course years and years ago and sort of said, that's something that I want to revisit. And before I knew it, it was 20 years later. And I was like, right, it's now or never. I also moved to Glasnevin. So, you know, all the signs were there that I needed to. I was like, can't be this close to it and not go and do it. So, yeah, so I applied and thankfully was successful in application to do the course and really, really was looking forward to it. Got into it and realized, I mean, back when the last time I was in college, bearing in mind the internet wasn't around, right? So you're talking that long ago. It was probably going into the library and physically taking books and reading things, you know. So very, very different vista that I had to get used to fast, and a very different way of learning. Which I was happy to embrace. And I would encourage anybody in similar situations to myself like that, not to kind of let that deter you. Just because you might have been out of education or out of academia for a while doesn't mean that, you know, you're not beyond new methods of learning. There's loads of you know, to engage that growth mindset, I suppose, really, to engage in the process. So I found the first semester, funnily enough, I was, you know, quite interested in the psychology element. However, when I started with the strategy, organization and innovation lectures, that was like a new language to me. I just wasn't familiar with the terminology, with the language being used, all of that. That was something that I found really difficult initially. And ironically, found it to be my strongest subject in the end because I was really, really interested in it. And similar to yourself, Hazel, and kind of mixing that psychology and business, I found that aspect really, really interesting. And being able to apply that theory to practice back in my L&D position. Then whilst in that position, very soon after I started the course, I was promoted. I went for a promotion and worked to area management. So moved out of L&D back into kind of area management. Or project management, and albeit that was a temporary role initially. And then I decided, you know, I started thinking from being introduced to different people and realizing there were so many other different roles. And as both Janine and Hazel have outlined already, the diversity of people that you could engage with, jobs that I didn't know exist, titles that I didn't know exist, organizations that I didn't know exist, you know, that I was able to sort of to speak to them and sort of get a bit more of an idea of maybe where I could see myself and my future going. So with that, I actually went then back. I decided there probably weren't as many promotion opportunities in the charity that it was, time for a change. And I was successful in application for a training and development position in Tusla. So similar, still with the child kind of social care, social work area, but moved from charity sector to public sector. And then just kind of around the same time, I got speaking to Grant Thornton. who at the time were just kind of, you know, building really a portfolio around maybe L&D people out there effectively. And I had been in communications with them, and they kind of said, look, you know, effectively, we want to see who's out there, what sort of talent is out there, and, you know, we'll keep you on file effectively. So I was like, grand. And then a few months later, a position became available. I was contacted. Am I still interested? Yes, I am. And I went for that position. And I firmly believe there's no way I would have been successful in that, nor would I have sort of engaged or enjoyed as much of the changes I have without this course. It just kind of gave me the confidence, gave me the skill set, the knowledge base, everything I needed really to engage with the course. So I was really, really happy that I did it. It's worked out really well. And furthermore, actually, I've just very recently, my manager, who's the head of L&D, so you're over kind of about 3,000 people in total in Grant Thornton. And she's going on maternity leave, and they've asked me to cover her position whilst she's gone. So it's a kind of further promotion. So yeah, so it's just kind of snowball. I don't know, I've probably bitten off way more than I can chew. But again, kind of, you know, there's so much that I've learned, and it's brilliant because it's been so recent for me, having just qualified and being in a position to apply all of that learning and theory to practice. It's really kind of come full circle. So I'm in a really kind of a thankful and grateful, good position, you know, in terms of my own future as well, you know, really from doing this course, you know, so I would encourage anybody to seriously consider it.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Fiona, for sharing this. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
And yeah, I think at this point we are at the end of our presentation, but I'm conscious of time. So if you have maybe any questions for Hazel or Triona, you know, please do go ahead, and I'm happy to stick around a little bit longer. So is there anyone who has a question for Triona or Hazel to begin with, or feel free to ask other questions as well?
Sorry, Amy here. I'll turn on my camera.
Yes, please do come in, Amy. Thank you.
Hello. Sorry, I'm a bit crazy today, working from home and stressed. Hi guys, thanks a million thanks Janine as well for putting this on today, and for the guys for sharing their experience. I suppose I'm just wondering how, with such a, you know, heavy workload, you know, in college, and then also, you know, I've been in PwC myself, and I know how, you know, fast paced it is, and the workload can be heavy. How do you manage that? And, you know, yeah, how did you find the balance basically between the two? Sorry, I didn't put that to anyone in specific, but whoever.
I'm happy to start off. If you have anything to add, Triona, you can go ahead. I think it's really important to set expectations with your group in college that you're with initially, like the contract that Janine mentioned, but I think also with your company. So if you're working with a company that's going to support you, whether that's financially with the program or even just support you personally with it, I think it's really important that you're really open and honest with them throughout it, that, look, I am under pressure, you know, outside of work hours, and I just want to communicate that with you, you know, just so that, you know, sometimes work can slip if you're, you know, if you're up late doing an assignment, which can often be the case, and you're tired the next day, you're not 100%. I think it's just really important to be like open and honest and communicate that with your work, with the people you're with. And as well, like, you know, Janine and all the staff are super supportive that, you know, if you had a week or two where you're really busy and working, you can't physically attend the class, obviously that's not ideal, but they more than appreciate just sending an email and keeping them in the loop about it, and nobody wants anybody to miss out. So I think it's really important to know that it is just all about kind of managing your support network and leveraging everyone, and you will have people that are going to be there if you can't make the class. You know, I have a couple people that I kind of rely on to text if I'm like last 2 weeks ago I was sick, so I didn't make it to the class, so I was able to text one of the girls and she gave me the update. So I think it's just, you know, managing your network, managing who you know, being honest and open, and it's not going to be easy, but it is definitely doable. Like, so many cohorts have gone through it and they've all done it before and all been really successful. And obviously as well, just getting your assignments done as early as possible is always really, really helpful. So if you can do that, get them in before the deadline, that's an option. I hope that was somewhat helpful.
No, that's perfect. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'd just to add to that, Amy. Yeah, I totally agree. It's you know, just use the people around you and be kind of upfront. I mean, I suppose for comparison, I didn't have the support of the organization that I was working for. They were very much like, we'll support what we can, but realistically, we need you here, you need to do this, you know, and they kind of said like, we'll release you to attend lectures, but beyond that, you have to make up the hours yourself. And, you know, and it was really hectic. I mean, it was kind of, you know, you're at minimum 50-hour week, you know what I mean? And sort of when you're doing, you know, when you're doing your reading and all that on top of it, it can be intense, but it can be done. And I think, as Hazel said, it's a really good marker actually to kind of go, people do it. It's been done before, it can be done again. And you will get into your own groove effectively. You know what I mean? You'll find what works for you, use your supports. I think there was only one lecture that I missed physically being in person. And I was able to attend online, but that was only because I was identified as being in close contact at the time, you know. So I mean, it can be done. It's hard work. I also kind of pretty much resigned myself to going, right, you know what, this is what I'm doing now, and I need to kind of just close off the next kind of 2 years or 2 academic years effectively, you know, and just commit to that. And, you know, once you have support from your family, friends, you know, you'll have your course supports, the lectures, everybody is in DCU is really, really supportive too. So it is very doable, and it's a great sense of achievement. Each assignment, as you go through them, each assignment, as you kind of pick them off, just re-energizes you that little bit more as you go through them.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Great. Do we have any other questions for Hazel or Fiona from the group?